Shalom and good day all, this is the Healing29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I'll be covering Samurai Sonja and the Artists Elite Presents, to which they have 3 stories in this, but the one I'll be starting off with first will be Samurai Sonja. So first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening inside with the story? Sure enough, not really. To which I give the cover a 5 out of 10. I'll now show some of the internal art around the beginning, middle and end in relation to the story and some of the things that are connected to the story. So as we begin, we've got a somewhat connection to Sonja's past in this land, in Japan, but as we move forward we see her in her samurai gear, and she realizes that someone is missing a limb, and as her journey continues she meets, well, practically a talking monkey that is somewhat making a monkey out of her. Then, last but not least, towards the end of the story, or at the end of the story, to where she's taking herself to a fortress in this area. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the story. First things first, what did we have covering the area of time? Nothing at all. The location, we still only know it as Japan, and the cast of characters mainly consisting of Sonja and the monkey, having a bit of monkey business. Overall story rating, a 5 out of 10. This thing could probably put itself in the Fool's Gold, considering the rating. Well, now let's move on to something else, and that is the Artists Elites, or the Artists Elite Presents Issue 1. So here we go with the Artists Elite Presents, and in this it's got 3 stories in it, and of course, as we can see here, these are actually connected to the 3 stories. And I'll be able to show you some of that when we start to look inside within each one of them. So, for the cover rating, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening, well, story-wise? To which we get to see all 3 of these characters. Sure enough it does, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'll now go to showing some of the internal, and in it I'll be able to give you both the story rating as well as the art rating, as well as giving a indication of like who the cast of characters are, and if we got any cast of characters at all. So first things first, this is showing the stories that we have inside this, and we've got 3 stories. First is the Serpent Prince, and as you can see there, that is the character of the Serpent Prince. We don't actually get their main name, but for what the story is, it's actually not bad. I wouldn't give it top tier, but it was somewhat enjoyable what I got so far. The next one is called Final Boss, and the last one is called Sand Wenches. So I'll show you a little bit of art with each one and give you my story rating. As well as art rating. Now this is a little bit of the first one, and eventually the end of it, to which I gave the story rating for this a 7 out of 10. I really quite enjoyed the art for this, as I gave it a 7 out of 10. The cast of characters that we got to meet in this was Lancelot, who was a demon hunter in this, and that was actually the female character. And of course we had the Serpent Prince, who is the male character. So moving on to the next one, this one is actually pretty Front up as to who we're actually meeting, as to who the main character is, and we do actually get to see things center around this character, and his name is Tommy Brazen. And it gives you a bit of an insight. I'll now show some of the internal art. We get a bit of an indication as to when this takes place, some of the locations that they are going to look at and in somewhat examine, until Tommy Brazen's power awakens up. And we also get some action here, as well as some talk. Until finally we reach the end, to which I start off with giving this art 7 out of 10, and I quite enjoyed it. About the only cast of characters that I managed to see was actually Tommy Brazen himself. I couldn't quite make out the rest, but overall story rating I gave a 7 out of 10. Now let's move on to the last one, being the Sand Wenches. Of course, we get a beginning as to sort of like where this takes place, and we get to meet some of the characters. We never really get their names in this. We know that's just their group name, the Sand Wenches. I must admit, the only thing that this sort of really had in its favour was the art. Not so much the story though, which is really disappointing. And of course, moving towards the end. So, Sand Wenches fighting, I don't know, wild vegetables, if you're into that thing. Alright, moving into the art rating first, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was alright, not very strong. Even though it does look nice in appearance, it doesn't mean it executes well in the story. Cast of characters, we got no indication of any cast of the characters. And last but not least, the story rating, a 5 out of 10. So this is probably the most disappointing out of them. But the only bonus thing about it was actually the art. Well, until next time, let's keep it colourful. And have an awesome day. And apart from that, let's keep it colourful.